Okay, hello again, everyone, and thanks for tuning in. My name is Laura Lee, and I'm the Young Parents Director, and I'm here with Katie, who is our Faith 101 leader and Young Parents mentor. Hi, Katie.
Hi.
Today is part two of an activity that we are doing in preparation for Easter and the Easter story. So we started this last time. It's called Resurrection Eggs. It's an activity that can help us show our kids the Easter story in a way that engages them visually, like a craft. So Katie's actually coming to our groups, our young parents groups, and doing this in full. So you get to do it if you're part of that group. But in the meantime, we wanted to put this out there as a resource for you. This is part 2 of 4. So there'll be 4 of these just to keep it simple and quick for you. So something that you can do with your kids.
Yeah. Do you remember what our first 3 eggs were last week, Laura Lee?
I'm glad you asked. I actually remember the cute. Shows that it's a good activity because I actually remember remembering the cute little things that you popped out of the eggs. I especially like that little palm branch.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yes, palm leaf. That was my favorite, and that represented Palm Sunday.
Yeah.
Then you had dimes.
Yeah, I had nickels, which they probably should be
Oh, they were
dimes.
nickels. Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I had coins. Yeah.
I love that. That's so fun. So that represented when Judas betrayed Jesus with the 30 silver coins, right? You don't put 30 nickels in, do you?
I don't. That seems generous.
It's
30
just
dimes
symbolic.
would be even better.
Yeah. And then I remember this one because you had the communion cup and a little wafer.
Yeah.
Which
I only have one of these, but I actually just got, I wish they were within reach. These really, when I go to visit the parents, I just got these really adorable. They're like a Barbie sized wine glass that looks like it has red wine in it. They're like this big. So that's what's going to go. That's what's going to go in the young parents when I come visit you guys and you get to make them.
That.
They're adorable. Yeah.
Oh, that's super so cute. So cute. Okay, so we're just going to do 3 more, 3 of 12 this week. We'll go through them and what part of the story each of them symbolizes and share our thoughts. So I'll pass it over to you, Katie. And
yeah. So the first 3 eggs were kind of these events that were leading up to this really intense time of less than 2 days really of Jesus entering into and coming close to his death. And so now these next 3 eggs really help us focus in on Jesus and his experience at this time. And so the next egg number 4, is after Jesus has had this meal with his disciples, which was the little bread and the cup, he invites some of them to go to a garden with him, the Garden of Gethsemane. And I know you've been there, Laura Lee, so maybe you can visualize this. I have, yes. And he takes them and he says, he wants them to stay awake and stand guard while he goes to pray. And so inside our little egg this time, and they're so tiny, it's hard to do it on camera, but it's a little prayer, hands praying. You could put it on a necklace or just leave it in the egg. But and so this is to symbolize and to remind us of Jesus spending his time in prayer. And when he goes off, he prays 3 times. There's kind of a succession of 3 prayers, and they're all almost exactly the same. And he is saying to his Father, first of all, so he's praying to God as Father and saying over and over again, not my will, but yours be done. If it's not possible for you to take this cup, this burden, this thing that he's about to do away from me, may not my will, but yours be done. So he's praying in obedience and acknowledging that the Father is in control and has a plan for what's about to come. And it says that he's in sorrow. One of the Gospels says that he sweats blood. So this is a very just a serious and sorrowful time, and yet one of full surrender. And meanwhile, his disciples keep falling asleep. So he goes back and checks on them, and they've fallen asleep. And he says, like, you can't even stay awake a little bit. And then he goes and prays and back and forth. So that's what egg number 2 is for. It's really Jesus' last hours, hours of freedom, and he spends them in prayer in this time of sorrow, but in communion with his Father, which is not necessarily how most of us would spend our last hours of freedom if we knew that they were coming, but
Great
that's how he
point.
spends
Yeah.
it. So then from there in the garden, we remember Judas, who got the silver. He comes with some leaders to arrest Jesus. And this is where the betrayal happens. And he turns him over, and Jesus is arrested, and he's brought before what's called the Sanhedrin. This is like a religious court. And this is where the religious leaders of high priests are really intentionally looking for a reason to put Jesus to death. They bring in false witnesses who really have nothing. Even it says in the Bible, in Matthew 26, most of this is I'm taking from Matthew. Well, all of the Gospels have it, but I was referring directly to Matthew as I was preparing. But they say they bring in false witnesses, and even then they still don't really have anything, which is so interesting. But then they ask Jesus, "Are you the Messiah? Are you the Son of God?" And he's sort of very cryptic in his answers. He always says, "You've said so. This is what you have said." And then he quotes a bit from the book of Daniel. And he said, they ask him if he's the Son of God. And he says, "You have said so, but I say to you, from now on, you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven." And this sounds so cryptic to us, but they would be very familiar with this passage. It is from Daniel, and Daniel the prophet is talking about the coming Messiah. And so this is the turning point from them. They say this is blasphemy. He's being sacrilegious in declaring this. And so they take him. This is a whip that I constructed. This is my craftiness coming out. Not very crafty.
You know what? I was interested when I was reading the Gospels that, okay, never mind. I'm actually getting off track. This is your craftiness. Carry on with your craftiness.
Well, they don't actually beat him with a whip. Is that what you're going to say?
No, but that's interesting.
I think it says they use their fists, but I didn't have a fist.
Okay.
And the craft thing that I was going off of said a whip, and then I was reading and I'm like, I don't think it actually says a whip, but it does remind us that he was beaten there before taken away. Did you want to say something?
No, okay. Ignore me. Just listen to Katie. I'm just here to observe.
So that's what that one is. He's before the religious authorities, and they beat him. Now they don't have the authority to kill him and to execute him. So they have to put him before the Roman authorities, and this is why they take him to Pilate, who is the Roman official who would be able to send or declare an execution command. And so they've really, they're making sure that this is all done. They want to make it look like they've done this the right way, and to look like they haven't actually been the ones to do it. And so Jesus essentially has another trial, and it's very similar. Pilate asks questions. Jesus doesn't really refute anything. He doesn't really say much. He doesn't defend himself at all. And in the Gospel of Matthew, what's interesting is there's an account where Pilate asks the people. It says there's a custom where they will release a prisoner, and he asks the people, "Do you want me to release Jesus or Barabbas, who is essentially an insurrectionist, a zealot?" And the people want to release Barabbas and to crucify Jesus. And what's interesting is a lot of those people could have been the same people who were waving the palm leaf when he came in and saying Hosanna, and now they're saying crucify him. And so Pilate declares that he's going to be crucified, and he hands him over to the Roman soldiers. And in Matthew 27, it says that, so he's been handed over to the soldiers. They bring him in. They strip him and put a scarlet robe on him, and then twisted together a crown of thorns and set it on his head. They put a staff in his right hand. Then they knelt in front of him and mocked him. "Hail the King of the Jews," they said. They spit on him and took the staff and struck him on the head again and again. After they had mocked him, they took the robe off and put his own clothes on him and led him away to crucify him. And so this is really one of the iconic symbols. This is our little crown of thorns that this is always on Jesus when we see images of him on the cross, that he has this crown of thorns that has been pressed into his head and that he's bleeding from. So again, that just reminds us of the pain he's going through, even leading up to his crucifixion, and the way that they mocked him, that this was all a way of seeking to humiliate him as they bring him away to crucify him. So those are our eggs today. The story gets really good, by the way. We don't always.
I'm actually quite emotional.
Yeah.
I mean, when you do it in the groups, I'm sure you're going through it in a way that
it leads to the happy ending.
It leads to the whole ending. But that's actually what is striking me about this.
Yes.
I am seriously tearing up about it.
Yeah.
Because I think one of the things as you're talking is, yes, I'm very aware of all that Jesus is doing for the people, for us. But how the people are responding is what's getting to me. Is that Jesus, none of this was a surprise to him. And he knew that he would be going through this humiliation, probably why the great stress in the Garden of Gethsemane, but also knowing what is to come with his own Father. I'll leave that there. But you're talking about disciples being asleep in his moment of distress, then him being beaten and humiliated by people who once waved palm branches for him.
Yeah. I also totally skipped over Peter, by the way. And that's a quick aside that one of his closest disciples denies that he knows him in the process. Jesus is taken in, and you know this, Lorelei, he's taken in for part of his trial, and Peter is outside, and people say, aren't you one of his followers? And he says, no, over. And Jesus told him he was going to do this, and he said, no, I won't. And he did it anyway. So continue.
And then just that, and then Pilate washing his, like, that wasn't gone into detail, but like, I wash my hands of this. I'm not going to take responsibility. So he goes to through all this without an ally, and I'm just like overwhelmed at the thought of it. None of us, no one understood in the moment what was really, really happening and what he was allowing to happen. This is what he came to do.
Yeah. And I mean, this is me, like, this is my geekness coming out, but like all throughout is this irony, right? Like they're crowning him as king and they think they're mocking him, but it's real. And there's a part when Pilate is asking them, who should I let go? And they say, Barabbas means son of the Father, and Matthew calls him Jesus Barabbas. So they actually have the same name. Right. And so it's Jesus, son of the Father versus Jesus, son of the Father God. Like that's who he's putting up against each other. And that I could just go on. This is the stuff that I love. But and then when he says, you said this, that he washes his hand of it. And I can't remember the exact quote, but the people say his blood is on us and our children. This is where I get emotional, and it's the guilt, but they have no idea that they're declaring what his blood will do for them and their children, that this is the blood that will save them and bring them back to God. And just that the gospel writers weave that in, and that the story has these parts hidden like little Easter eggs. They're Easter eggs in the story that point towards what is really happening that the people are oblivious to. It's pretty incredible. The way that it all goes down. So I
did not expect really cool. to be.
I know.
It just hits me that Jesus gets a similar response today, and each of us has to contend with what is our response to what Jesus has done for us. Are we ridiculing? Are we rejecting? Are we saying, I don't want anything to do with it? Or are we receiving this gift for ourselves? So that sits with me. I took that in a direction.
Completely. No, that's good. And I was going to talk about love, but I can talk about it another time. I think I'll save it because I think that's a really important. And I think if you wanted to read through this part of the story on your own, Matthew 26 and 27 are any of the Gospels, but you can look through those. And it is helpful and convicting to kind of find yourself in this story. Like, who are we in it? Are we the fickle? Like, I know I identify a lot with Peter, who's like, when I feel like Jesus is right here, I'm like, yeah, I'm all for it. And then it can be really easy to, when you're confronted with any kind of hostility, someone who might ridicule you for being a follower of Jesus, you can be like, I'm good. So
it's true.
Yeah.
But all of this, like, I think as you're laying it out in these ways, this one feels especially dark.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
think, I mean, the whole thing, yet it is such a beautiful tragedy. I guess
Yeah.
I'll call it. It leads to such beauty and redemption, which we're going to get to in the weeks to come. But I was
Yes.
really struck with it at each spot. You mentioning people's response to
Yeah.
what Jesus has allowed himself to go through for us. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. More to come. Next week is a hard
More
one
to
too,
come.
but week 4 is
Okay.
pretty great.
Next time I'll bring Kleenex and not
Yeah.
use my sleeve. Oh dear.
It's resourceful.
Well, thank you, Katie. And
Mhm.
you've also said that there is a resource for young parents. Did you want to share that?
Yeah, I don't know the best way to share that link. I don't know if it worked properly on
Oh,
Facebook. I think it did. I didn't do it on here. No, I should have shared it with you before because you probably could have
oh,
posted it. But I can share it again, and it's just if you wanted to join a reading group, you can do it on your own time. You can do it, however, and it can take you as long as you want it to. But it just walks you through this whole the Easter story, the whole Holy Week, kind of from Palm Sunday, which we started with, through the events. And this particular plan has some little devotional explanation parts, so it helps you kind of understand what you're reading. And I think it also takes from some different gospel accounts, so you're kind of getting the different, because each of the gospel writers is kind of communicating something different about the story. There's something different that strikes them, just like when
yeah.
when we read it, something stands out, and there's something that stood out to them that they want to communicate. So it's good to get a different, the varying perspectives of what was going on. So
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. I will do my best when I post this to include the link wherever this is posted.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
please be looking for that in a comment or in caption. And I always want to encourage you to reach out if you want more of a conversation. This is why Katie and I are here. We're not just letting you grapple with it on your own. We do want to have conversations. Again, Katie is coming around to the various young parents groups, and we'll have a fuller conversation with you there. Or if you want a one-to-one faith conversation, please reach out to us. And thank you. We'll see you next time.
Yeah. Bye.